Okay. Okay, so I've been reading and I've gotten through the first chapter and a tiny bit of the second chapter. Um and I've discovered that reading a book like this isn't like reading a magazine or a newspaper or even a regular book. It's like you literally have to put yourself in a position of knowing, okay, my position in this world as a black person. The person that wrote this book was a white person. This book was written in 1932, or it was originally originally published in 1932. You have to take into account what the world was like in 1932 and what was considered politically correct in 1932, and basically, like, you have to put everything into context as far as how it was written, when it was written, who wrote it, who's reading it. So it takes a while to like throw everything into the right context. In a certain part of the book, the author referred to Africans and Indians as heathens, and I'm like, the author's the heathen, but since he's obviously a European, he thinks that he's not a heathen. He thinks that other peoples, the brown people of the world, are the heathenistic races or whatever, and some are, but like the Israelites, some of us aren't. We just behave in such ways because we've been under their rule for such a long time. But anyway, I'm going to read parts of the book that I found interesting. Again, it's called Education in the Social Order, and the first chapter is about, it's entitled The Individual versus the Citizen. It's basically talking about the educational system, how it fosters citizens and not individuals, and how that affects basically the type of person someone becomes. And I highlighted a few parts. I kind of wanted to read them out loud so I'd have it as a note and so I could share it with others, possibly share it with others. It says, education and citizenship, if it is wise, can retain what was best in an individual culture. But if it is in any way short-sighted, it will stunt the individual in order to make him a convenient tool of government. It is therefore important to realize the dangers inherent in those ideals of citizenship when narrowly conceived. Those who institute state systems of education will cause men to deteriorate even as citizens, if they take a narrow view of what constitutes a good citizen. That's basically what is going on in the educational system right now. You have first of all, Israelites. We are in the educational system. We should not even be in those school systems. They are completely stacked against us from the inside out, just completely stacked against us. The author of this book knows that. I mean, you can't write a book about this and not know that. And actually, 1932 schools weren't even integrated or anything at that point, so he wasn't even considering us basically even as even citizens or or otherwise. We weren't considered when he was writing this book at all. That's one thing I've noticed, is black people were not considered at all in the writing of this book. So you kind of have to apply it to this day and time and the things, and basically even the fact that we weren't considered, you should consider that. But anyway, that's what it's saying. It's saying that basically that this system is basically meant to beat the individual culture out of a person and to make them a productive citizen. So the white people that are in the schools that believe that they're free and all of this and stuff and whatever, they're actually slaves too. They just don't know it. And a lot of them are proud slaves because the educational system brainwashes them to be prideful about being something that's basically just pushed off an assembly line. But at any rate, I'll read this other part that I found interesting. Education in the modern world tends to be a reactionary force, supporting the government when it's conservative and opposing it when it's progressive. Unfortunately, also the elements of good citizenship, which are emphasized in schools and universities, are the worst elements, not the best. What is emphasized most of all is patriotism in a somewhat militant form. That is to say, a narrow devotion to the persons living in a certain area as opposed to those living elsewhere, and willingness to further the interests of persons in the chosen area by the use of military force. With regard to internal affairs, citizenship and generally taught perpetuates traditional injustices. The great majority of well-to-do young men, for example, felt patriotic during the general strike when they acted as blacklegs. Hardly any of them had been so educated as to be able to conceive the case in favor of the strikers. Wherever injustice exists, it is possible to invoke the ideal of legality and constitutionality in its support. That's basically the iniquity that abounds in the American system itself. And basically it's saying that that type of ideal and mindset is affirmed in the educational system, and that most quote-unquote white Americans feel good about being unjust, and they feel good about being wicked. They feel good about it, and this educational system is the thing that pumps them up. It gives them the letter to go by to say that it's okay in this case. It's okay in our case because they're brainwashed to believe that they're superior and they can do other things to other people and other people in other parts of the world, and that it's right because the school basically has taught them that it's right. So another part was their teaching tends to overemphasize the importance of the law and the Constitution, although these give the past a paralyzing hold over the present. By reaction against this overemphasis, those who desire any radical improvement in the world are compelled to be revolutionary. Okay, again, the education system, it produces productive citizens, and productive citizens are not productive individuals. You're not an individual anymore. You're part of the system. So basically it's saying that the teachings overemphasize the importance of their laws, not the Most High's laws, but the laws that have been set forth by this nation. And they are laws of iniquity. They are unjust laws. They are laws that stamp down and kill other people and shed innocent blood. These are the laws that are emphasized in the modern educational system, and that's become people's code as far as what's right and what's wrong. It's not really what's right and what's wrong. It's what they've been taught is right and wrong. It says, animal habit is sufficient by itself to make a man like the old ways, just as it makes a horse like to turn down a road which it usually turns down. None of the higher mental processes are required for conservatism. The advocate of change... Sorry, my dryer went off. I'll start over. Animal habit is sufficient by itself to make a man like the old ways, just as it makes a horse like to turn down a road which it usually turns down. None of the higher mental processes are required for conservatism. The advocate of change, on the contrary, must have a certain degree of imagination in order to be able to conceive of anything different from what exists. He must also have some power of judging the present from the standpoint of values, and, since he cannot well be unaware that the status quo has its advocates, he must realize that there are at least two views which are possible for a sane human being. At least two views. Moreover, he is not obliged to close his sympathies against the victims of existing cruelties or to invent elaborate reasons to prove that easily preventable sufferings ought not be prevented. Both intelligence and sympathy, therefore, tend to be less repressed by an education hostile to the status quo than one that is friendly to it. So basically, when the government is basically funding the schools, when the government is basically running the schools, you are in a school that is friendly to the status quo. Therefore, your creativity is completely shut down to the point where you can't think outside the box. And it's just basically reiterating about the iniquity that someone trained in the educational system adopts as right and wrong, and they carry that into their life, and they can't change anything because they're no longer unique. They're no longer individuals. They have no capacity to conceive of anything different than what is, because they've been trained, like brainwashed, basically. It says hostility to the status quo may be derived from either of two sources. It may spring from sympathy with the unfortunate or from hatred of the fortunate. I like to think of myself as the former, not the latter. But it says many revolutionaries in their daydreams are not so much concerned with the happiness that has succumbed to the common people as with the vengeance that they will be able to wreak upon the insolent holders of power from whom they are suffering in the present. And that, I want to say, that reminds me of the people that I'm not saying the Israelites, the people that are literally Israelites. I'm saying the people that are calling themselves Israelites and that are not, that are preaching to kill the white man and the white man's the devil and stuff. Those are the people that don't seek justice for justice sake. They seek justice to see the downfall of someone else. They don't seek it for the betterment of their own people or for people that are suffering. They seek it for vengeance, and the Bible says vengeance belongs to the Most High. So keep that in mind. The scientific frame of mind is broadly speaking that which facilitates discovery, not that which causes a man to have an unwavering belief in the present tenets of science. A well-educated citizen is likely to be incapable of discovery, since he will respect his elders and betters and reverence the great men of the past generation and look with horror upon all subversive doctrines. So basically, again, programmed, no originality, can't create, can't see out of the box, and basically is stunted and is held captive and prisoner of things like science and in the entire education system in and of itself. It says the skeptic holds that truth is undiscoverable, while the dogmatist holds that it is already discovered. And those of us who are in the truth know that the truth is you can't search it out. You can't search out everything. It's beyond man's ability. That's the Most High that knows everything. That's where the fullness of wisdom resides, is with the Most High, the Creator. So like it says, the skeptic holds that the truth is undiscoverable, while the dogmatist holds that it's already discovered. The man of science holds that the truth is discoverable, though not discovered, at any rate in the matters which he is investigating. And what I thought was interesting is you go down a few lines and it says, the beliefs of the man of science are therefore tentative and undogmatic. Then you go down a few more lines and it says, they depend, that is to say, upon what he himself has ascertained by observation. So if somebody's gonna like go back and say that okay, they believe that the truth is discovered or discoverable, then it's just like, how convenient, it's like, isn't it undiscoverable if you admit that you discover something but it can change? Like, it can't be both. Like, it can't be both discoverable and ever changing, and it's just to me, when you say something is discoverable yet ever changing and tentative, that means you don't know and you will never know. So it's like, that's the thing about scientists I don't understand. It says here, since scientific technique will be increasingly used to instill orthodoxy and credulity. Sorry, I'm not that great at reading. If this is not to happen, it will be necessary that boys showing a certain degree of aptitude for science shall be exempted from the usual training in citizenship and give license to think. And I think that's pretty much what's come to pass. Those are the only people that are considered smart in school, is people that excel in science and mathematics. And those people are basically given a license to think, but within certain parameters. And that produces, to me, I've known people that are like engineers and stuff. To me, it produces people that are so smart, they're stupid. Like, they really, really, really have a hard time with abstract thought, and they really, really have a hard time with a lot of concepts that involve spirituality and things that are not concrete. But I think that has come to pass. Another part that I found interesting in this same chapter, it says, all the governments of the world adopt elaborate methods of concealing truths which they consider undesirable, and inflict various forms of penalty upon those who spread knowledge which is thought bad for the population. This applies especially to knowledge of the kind which is considered seditious and the kind which is considered obscene. That's right out there from a white man in 1932 admitting that the schools teach convenient lies and they hide the truth. They teach lies and they hide the truth. He's basically saying it's well known. 1932. It says, education and citizenship has grave dangers. Nevertheless, the argument in favor of some education designed to produce social cohesion is overwhelming. The whole educational machine in America, from the public schools to universities, is concerned to emphasize citizenship and to impress its duties upon the youthful mind. In spite of this educational effort, the average American, owing either to the pioneering tradition of, okay, that's something my mom underlined. At any rate, I thought it was interesting that it also admits here that, early programming is just part of the system. I got a little bit into the next chapter and I highlighted a few things, but I will save that for another video. And again, this book is called Education and the Social Order by Bertrand Russell, and publishers George Allen. And this will be beneficial for myself as like audio notes, and hopefully beneficial for someone else who wants to educate themselves on what's going on and what's been going on for many, 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 many years. Alright, shalom.